But I'm interested in that. There's a question I wanted to ask you, and somehow I've never gotten around to it, which is, you and your mother wrote this wonderful, beloved book, The Well-Trained Mind. And I guess it's probably...
Now going into its 4th edition.
Well, by the time
the world
people
sees
may
this.
see this down the road, and who knows, maybe even more editions. And that's kind of what established your vast fame and adulation. But more than that, what interested me, I can kind of see where that came from, but then you've also taught writing. You've become this renowned historian. And I'm always kind of curious how you made this step from here to here to here to here.
How these things fit together?
Yeah, I mean, how did that progression happen?
There's been a couple of different sort of interlocking aspects to this. I think that probably the thing that ties them all together is I like really big projects. I like big projects. I like to do like these overarching, complicated, multi-stranded projects that it seems like they'd be impossible to do, and that in fact people are like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well, you think?
Story of the world.
Watch me, right? And so I think what ties those together is this sort of idea of taking something incredibly complicated and difficult and distilling it down into a pattern that makes sense. Because that's the same thing, with the well-trained mind. Literally, the genesis of that was me saying to my mother when my oldest son was 5, let's plan out all 12 years of school ahead of time so that I know what I'm doing.
And she said, oh, sure.
Well, she did. My mother's very, very much the same way,
I know,
as you may know.
God bless her. I love her.
Yeah, so we did, and that was the genesis of the book. The story of the world actually came about because I couldn't find a history curriculum I liked.
Right.
They were all so pedantic, and they were so encyclopedic and boring, and they were either way too much dull, dry text, or they were too many like wild snippets of information and images, like this desperate attempt to keep kids interested with graphics and pull-out box. I hate pull-out boxes.
People that don't have confidence in a child.
Yes,
really.
Don't have confidence in the child's ability to be interested in history. And so I wrote the story of the world to fill that gap. And then I'd asked my long-term publisher, Norton, if they were interested in publishing it. And they said, no, well, we don't publish children's books, but why don't you write it yourself and form a little publishing company and we'll be your distributor, because they distribute for other presses. So I was like, okay, we'll just start a publishing company, which we did.
Yeah.
And so that was actually...
So we did, except it was recordings instead of books.
Yeah, we just started it. And you talked about your first recordings, The Story of the World. The first print run we did of The Story of the World, we'd never worked with a printer before. And when we got the books, all the pages were already detaching from the spines because the glue job was so bad. And I thought, oh, wait, that's something you should discuss with the publisher ahead of the printer. You should get samples of their books and see if they do a good job.
We like to say
it's been a lot of trial
we had
and error.
ignorance on our side.
Yes, it seemed simple. And we had at that time one of the first online homeschooling forums. It was the Well-Trained Mind message boards. It was old bulletin board format. I built it myself, and I used to run it out of the attic of our house. And I said on these forums that we were publishing a history curriculum, and a whole bunch of people were interested. We had 339 orders. We were so excited.
Isn't that wonderful?
And we lined up laundry baskets all the way down the hall.
Yes.
And all the kids ran up and down putting books in the manila envelopes, and we hand addressed them all, and we carried them in laundry baskets down to the Ruthville post office. And pretty soon they would see us coming and like slam the window down. And one poor little lady who used to work back there and could barely walk. But then in doing it too, you discover what your real passion is for it. I mean, when I wrote The Story of the World, I had a Master of Divinity degree, and I had an MA in English literature, translation theory, because I always had been interested in language. And it was after I wrote that I thought, I love history. I love history. I had thought about doing history when I was in college, and I was turned off by a couple of really bad history classes and thought, oh no, this isn't what I want to do. And I was so fascinated. I thought, this is storytelling. Yeah. It's true storytelling. It's great. And so that's actually, I went back to get my PhD in history. And then that sort of then led to the history of the world.